Karen, can you hear me? Oh, I found it. Never mind.
Yes, I can.
I
Sorry,
found the
had to
button.
find
Never
my
mind. I was just
button.
looking for the Zoom people thing there.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. So, do we have quorum or do we still waiting? Can you let me know that, please?
1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, we have it. Do we have anyone in the room?
John,
You've got it. You're good.
give me 1 second then.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the middle of something I didn't realize was already 4:30. Sorry about that.
And is Christy Kumar in the room with you?
Yes, and yeah, Christy's there.
Great.
And
Okay.
Haas is also here.
Okay.
I mean, he's not here, but he's in the room. Sorry.
To jot that down, and then we're waiting for. Okay. President Figueroa Cole.
So, hold on for a second. So,
Oh, sorry.
I mean, yes. Okay, so today is August 6th, 2024, and I will call to order the Madison Common Council Executive Committee meeting. Karen, can you please call the roll?
All right. President Figueroa Cole.
Here.
Vice President Duncan.
Here.
Alder Govindarajan is excused. Alder Conklin.
Present.
Alder Martinez Rutherford.
Present.
Alder Uguer.
Did you hear that, Karen?
I did not. Did he? He's here.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, he's here. Yes.
Alder Harrington McKinney.
I'm present, but I will be off camera.
And Alder Curry. You have quorum.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Could I please get a motion?
Motion to
Who was that?
motion to approve.
And can I get a second, please?
Second.
Okay, so approved by Duncan and second by Conklin. Is there any questions about the minutes? Any concerns? Seeing no hands raised, I will take a vote. So is there any objection to record a unanimous consent of the agenda items? Okay, no hands raised, so that is moved. Is there any public comment?
No one is registered to speak.
Thank you. Do we have disclosures and recusals? So members of the body should make any required disclosures or recusals under the city ethics code. Are there any disclosures and recusals? Don't see anyone in the queue, so I will go ahead and move on. Has is back here, thank you. So the first item on the agenda for consideration is Legistar 84674, 2025 county budget process and timeline. So who do we have on this one, Karen, to present?
I believe Chair Miles is in the attendees list. If you, if IT could promote him up. One moment. I think there. Yep,
You got it?
there we go. So Chair Miles,
Oh, there
I
he is.
believe you should be able to share your screen directly.
Share my screen. All right. Can you see the
Yes.
presentation?
Yes, thank you.
Right. Well, so Council President Figueroa Cole had asked for me to, I guess, give an overview of our county budget process. So that's what I'll set about doing here, and take any questions at the end. So just real quick, I mean, this is probably obvious to all of you, but you know, just as with the city budget, the county budget is broken into two distinct budgets, one for operating, one for capital. The current year operating budget for the county is $789 million, and the capital budget came out to $179 million. And so for the operating budget, levy supported portion of the budget comes out to a little over $1,000 per for a house valued at about $400,000. So this Gantt chart basically just provides a big picture overview of both the various steps in the budget process, along with the corresponding timeline. So it begins with the county executive providing guidelines to the departments to develop their requests, and those are typically provided in late May, early June. And then the departments set about preparing their budget requests from there. And through the summer then, is right about this time, July and August, the departments come to the administration and provide updates on their requests. And those are usually completed by the end of summer. And then the county executive works from that material to develop the county budget. Once all the departmental budget requests are in, the county board does, along with the executive, hold a couple public hearings on the departmental requests. We split that over a couple evenings, given our numerous departments, usually human services and public protection or sheriff's budget, courts and that and like are on one night and all the other departments on another. And then typically by state statute, October 1st is the deadline by which the county executive needs to present the executive's budget proposal to the county board. And that's introduced by two different resolutions, one for the operating budget proposal and one for the capital budget proposal. And from there, the county board standing committees start their review process, and the board will also hold an additional public hearing for the public to respond to the executive's budget proposal. And our various standing committees basically review portions of the budget proposal relative to the departments over which they have oversight, and will propose amendments to the budget proposal and forward those to our Personnel and Finance committee. And so at the end of all the committee review and amendment considerations, Personnel and Finance will do a final review of those proposed amendments and propose a substitute to the budget resolutions for the board to consider at their deliberations. And of course, then the budget process is pretty much completed with it going to the executive. The executive may issue vetoes. It's the one time the county executive does have basically a line item veto authority. And so the county executive can strike portions, sentences, so forth from the budget. And then the county board has, at their next subsequent board meeting, has up until then to decide whether or not to consider overriding any possible budget vetoes. So, like I said, this is a Gantt chart showing that in just sort of big picture overview. This is the next couple of slides break out what I've just explained, with the executive issuing guidelines in May and June, so forth on through to introduction. So, as I said, by state statute, the executive has until needs to introduce a budget proposal by October 1st. And typically that's, in all my years on the county board, that's been when that has occurred, is pretty much on October 1st. But the county executive may introduce the budget sooner. And given the number of religious observances in October, and we try not to hold any meetings on high religious holidays, as well as the November 5th election, for which the county clerk will likely be very busy late into the night. The way our original schedule was, with an October 1st introduction of the executive proposal, had us having our budget deliberations on November 6th. And looking at our compressed calendar for standing committees to meet a limited number of days in October and that November 5th election, it seemed prudent to move that schedule up. And so for the first time, and I collaborated, the county executive and I collaborated and worked out a new schedule. And so we're looking at the county executive, instead of introducing the budget proposal on October 1st, this year will be introduced on September 18th is the target date. And And that will provide an opportunity for our standing committees to begin their consideration of budget amendments the last couple weeks in September, and then the first couple weeks in October. And with that earlier introduction, then our expectation is that Personnel and Finance Committee will consider its budget amendments for departments over which the Finance Committee oversees, and also will hold on October 15th the joint meeting with the Madison Board of Estimates to consider the Public Health Madison-Dane County budget. So we take turns hosting that each year. Last year, Board of Estimates hosted, and this year the County Personnel and Finance Committee will host, and that will be on October 15th. So, and so with this advanced schedule, the county board will hold its budget deliberations that last week in October, and hopefully completed then, but we've held November 4th as a date to continue our deliberations if we need to. So, so that's a quick overview of the different activities and timeline. And then this table shows that in a nutshell, and it is accessible by the URL that's listed there at the bottom of the screen at board.danecounty.gov/budget. Excuse me. And as I mentioned, with the submittal of departmental requests, county executives per budget proposal, and then once the Finance Committee develops its substitute amendment, we try to provide as many opportunities for public engagement as possible. And so we have several dates for which we hold public hearings. Like I mentioned before, there's one public hearing over a couple days for consideration of departmental budget requests. And then once the executive's budget is submitted, the county board holds another public hearing for reaction to that. That one's scheduled for October 9th. And then once the Finance Committee makes its final recommendations to amendments to the budget proposal, we'll hold a public hearing on October 28th for that. And of course, at each of the standing committees, and the standing committees are required to hold at least 2 meetings to consider the budget proposal and any amendments to it. And so at each of those meetings is an opportunity for the public to engage and provide input. And our staff has put together a couple videos on different processes. So you can see there's one for learning how to sign up to get and basically automatically receive agendas for various standing committees. So there's a link there for that midway down in this screen. And then at the bottom, our budget process is summarized in the video as well. So, okay. Council President Philip Cole had also asked for me to provide a sample amendments that's a joint effort between County Board and Common Council. And so this is one such. As again, as I mentioned, we have joint consideration of the public health budget. And so this is an example of of how the county board documents, codifies budget amendments. So we list in our budget amendments the supervisors that are sponsoring it, the standing committee that has consideration. And I should say about budget amendments, budget amendments have sort of a ranking priority of success in being able to receive passage or approval. And it starts the earlier in the process somebody gets an amendment in, the more likely it is to, the best chances, I should say, I shouldn't say most likely, but best chances it has for approval. And so that happens. We try to do as much work as we can in our committees and not do committee work on the board floor. So budget amendments considered at the respective standing committee is where we encourage people to start with their amendments. If somebody doesn't make it to one of those 2 committee meetings with their amendment, it can be introduced at Personnel and Finance Committee. If you can find a member of that committee to introduce the amendment. And we also do not recognize amendments that are not posted 24 hours in advance for the public to be able to see that. Just to make sure we maintain transparency in our process. So budget amendments do need to be submitted and posted 24 hours in advance on the agenda in Legistar. So at any rate, so an amendment could be introduced later at Finance Committee meeting, but again, as you get to that step, there's less of a chance of meeting approval. And then, of course, amendments can be introduced on the board floor during board deliberations once Finance Committee's sub is recommended to the board. And that's where an amendment has the least likely chance of survival. All that being said, I should say that this is looking like it's going to be a very lean year. The executive's guidelines to the departments were to provide basically cost to continue budgets and not to increase staffing and those sorts of things. Because various impacts, we have had a significant increase to health insurance. We had a number of budget amendments last year where we had some staffing that became effective later in this calendar year. So those are basically holes that need to be filled. And along with sales tax revenues, probably a little flatter than we had anticipated. For a number of reasons, we're looking at best a cost to continue budget this year. So that's our budget process in a nutshell, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chair Miles. Are there any questions from the body? I see Alder Ugary. Oh, I'll set you up.
Okay. Yes, we have an unusual. Is that feedback?
I heard we had an unusual, and then the audio cut out.
Let me try again. We had some feedback for a moment. We have an unusual year here, assuming, for sake of argument, the possibility that there will be a referendum for the city of Madison of to increase the property tax. We have the possibility that we may, until after that vote in November, we may be looking at two different budgets, and that could also affect the budget that would be available for those joint efforts like the public health budget. Can you comment on how you might see the process unfolding if we don't know what the public health portion for Madison would be until after the referendum vote?
And I'm assuming the referendum would coincide with the November election?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
special? And, you know, the board, it's my hope that we conclude our budget deliberations that last week in October. So I think that Wednesday is the target date. So obviously any adjustments that would need to be made to our budget after that would have to go through our usual budget amendment process outside of the regular, this budget process. So, just I'm sure as the council can make mid-year budget amendments, so can the board, but it requires a higher threshold of vote. So we can amend our budget with a 2/3 majority vote. So that would be my expectation, is that that would be what would have to happen if something changed due to the results of the referendum that impacts the county side of things. Of course, we have some split obligations on public health. I think it's 60-40 is our sort of split. So if there's mutual agreement to increase some spending and the county has latitude to do that, that would be done through a budget amendment after adoption of the budget. And that would require a 2/3 majority for passage at the board.
Thank you. That was helpful and responsive to my question.
Thank you. Alder Conklin.
Thank you, Madam President. Hi, Chair Miles. I would like to know how or where can we find the shared tax revenue?
So we should have, I know we have that number for 2024, obviously, but we got that number fairly late in the process.
Mhm.
So if that's what you're asking, is what is the county's shared revenue amount for 2025? We don't know that yet. The Department of Revenue will provide that.
Chair, I apologize. I misspoke. I'm sorry. I wanted to know where we could find the sales tax. I apologize if I should have said shared tax. I meant sales tax revenue. I apologize.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, I'm sure the cities, I get those values from our controller, and we do, there is a lag in the reporting of those monthly revenue from DOR. But regardless, I inquire with the controller to get updates on that. So, and he will be providing an update to the full board on that September 5th. So I have him scheduled to basically provide at a committee of the whole in a sense current state of county budget and go through some more detail, especially for our new members, our budget process.
And could you just state what time the meeting would start? And is that would be the and you said a cow, so that wouldn't be open to everybody, correct?
It'll be a committee of the whole. I don't think our committee of the wholes are usually recorded for City Channel, but it is open to the public, obviously. So, and that would be 6:00 on September 5th.
Thank you so much.
I don't see any other questions on the queue, but I do have a couple of questions and a quick comment. Thank you, Chair Miles, for joining us today. The main reason I asked for these information is because, this is my third budget as an elder, and every year, even from the first year, I have been able to work in collaboration with supervisors to maximize the tax dollars that we have between the county and the city. So I just wanted to encourage my colleagues to learn about those processes. So to clarify and based on the information that you provided, for any elder that wants to introduce or to discuss an idea of a budget combination between city and county, they need to determine the department and then determine what committee holds that budget, and then have the discussion with either a member of that committee to present to have the discussion with, to present that at the meetings, correct? I mean, you will have, if you find a supervisor on that specific committee that wants to work with you on a specific project, then you have the two finance teams work together, the one from the county and the one from the city, to create those matching amendments. Is that what how the process is? And then you just produce them for the public hearings within the committee. Is that correct?
Yeah. Let me clarify that amendments go first to the respective standing committees for whatever part of the budget that committee has oversight. So, for example, public health is under personnel and finance has oversight of public health. But I would encourage alders to, if there's county board supervisors you already have relationships with, work with them. Otherwise, contact the county board supervisor that represents you to coordinate and perhaps work jointly on a budget amendment. For example, last year when the bids came in higher for the public market, Alder Madison and Alder Goodiver asked to meet with me, and they provided me a considerable amount of information to help me advance a capital amendment to help close that gap. So, just as an example. So.
Thank you. So again, for my colleagues, just as an opportunity to keep an eye on the timelines of the county budget schedule and check out the videos that are shared on the presentation. I think they're very helpful. It has been to me, has been quite a pleasure to work with many county supervisors over the past 3 years. And we do have shared goals and shared values that sometimes do align for both budgets. So I encourage anyone to participate on that. And I know you're not here to answer specific budget questions, but I'm going to sneak one in there. If you had the answer, fine. If not, but do you have where can we find information, for example, about the rainy day fund for the county? Like, what is that value?
So if you go to the county executive's homepage, at the top, there's the departments, and under Department of Administration, one of the menus is pretty obvious that it goes to basically the budget, and you can download PDFs of each year's budgets. And so the 2024 adopted budget is there. And in the leading pages of that document, there is, at least at the time of adoption, what the 2024 reserves for.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Miles. Is anybody else on the committee has any other questions for the chair? Okay, I don't see any questions. I don't see any hands raised. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to come and visit us and record this information. And I'm sure it will be useful for the rest of the council. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, and I wish you all the best in a very challenging budget year.
Thank you. That is just an information item, so we don't have to take a vote on that. And if I'm wrong, please speak now or forever hold your truth. So that takes us to the second agenda item, which is one that, again, super important for our community and elders and budget season and everything, which is language access program and the bilingual community connector overview, Legistar number 84676. And we have someone from staff here joining us. Miss Christy Kumar.
Hi,
Take it over.
can you hear me? I think it's on.
I don't know, can you hear Christy?
Hi, everyone.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be with you all. My name is Christy Kumar, and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and I work in the Department of Civil Rights as the Equity and Social Justice Manager. And so my team and I are tasked with a few things, including racial equity and social justice, disability rights and services, neighborhood resource teams, and our language access program. So that's what we're going to focus on today. I will leave space for questions at the end once we kind of get through some of the stuff in the slide deck. I'll probably go pretty quick and won't get into the weeds of the technical pieces, but always open to having a conversation about that at another time. So next slide, please. Oh, yeah, we actually, you know what, maybe we'll go back. I'll give an overview a little bit more, less about me. Thanks so much for the tech there. Just some pieces on language access. What do we mean when we say that term? It means it's a collection of resources to include those who prefer a language other than English and individuals with disabilities in meaningfully accessing our city's services and programs. You might have noticed there I just said, for those who prefer a language other than English. We actually use that language, and that's not common across the country. Across the country, from language access experts, you're going to hear LEP. That means Limited English Proficient. That's what's in all the federal technical terminology. I myself have never met an individual from the community who says, "Hi, I'm LEP," or "Hi, I'm LEP," right? It doesn't resonate with folks. It's also pretty deficient based, right? We're thinking about the deficiency. And oftentimes they speak many languages. So really we want to focus on the fact that they prefer a language other than English, and we want to honor that. As opposed to changing them, it's changing how we do business to serve them and their needs. So the city's language access program is basically key for equitable communications to all folks. And this really reflects not only who we want to be as a city, but it's also smart governing. Neighborhoods are stronger and safer when residents feel more connected and they feel that they can belong and access important information that we have to share with them. So the next slide is the legal basis for language access. I'm going to go over this super quick, but basically there are federal compliance structures and as well as our own resolution, kind of local laws that govern how we orient around language access. Within Title VI, the focus here is national origin discrimination. That's prohibited. And discrimination can be intentional or unintentional. I think that's an important note. It can appear neutral, but have a discriminatory effect because that person didn't happen to speak English. Essentially, we want to make sure that we're providing reasonable steps for all of our programs and services for folks to be able to access. And reasonable steps is based on understanding who's in your population, what's the frequency of need of this item, and the importance of the service and the resources available. So the key to meaningful access is to ensure that the recipient can communicate effectively. We really are thinking about folks making sure that communication with people with disabilities is equally as effective. And we also have, for folks that might not know, in 2017, Council passed a resolution that directed the Department of Civil Rights to kind of be the holders of the Language Access Plan, to provide strategy for the city, to have this essentially centralized system. So we really administer all of the services. Places across the country might have a decentralized approach where every department or office is kind of tasked with this. And so at the city, we really ask folks to go through the Department of Civil Rights to support them in how they navigate language access. Next slide, please. All right. I want to talk about our services. What do we mean when we say language access? What services are we providing? And I've split this up into two different categories. I've created a side on the left that says on demand. These are on-demand services. They're happening live when you just interact with someone that you meet out in the field or at the front desk or calls your phone. That's what we mean by on-demand. The second side is called advanced requests. This is when you are planning for language access. And so I'm going to focus on the right side because I think it affects Alders. You all aren't really like on a front desk phone line. So on the right side, the first thing you're going to see is plain language consultation. Our department's disability rights and service specialist, Rebecca Hoyt, has a fantastic training that she offers several times a year. The next one is in November. Maybe I'll have Karen send it out so Alders can sign up. It's a training on how to do plain language communication. We as a city are really trying to kind of level up our capacity to do this. Plain language basically means that you are writing at a 6th to 8th grade level. Now, we understand that certain communications might get higher on that 8th grade level, but really we want to make sure like something like emergency communication is at a 6th grade level. And being really clear about what we mean, not 45-page reports when you don't need it. So if you're interested, I encourage you to attend that plain language training, which is really going to help everybody at the city, not just folks who prefer a language other than English. We offer translation services. We offer city staff to go through if they're applying for a designated bilingual position, the certification process, because city staff in Madison get a $1 pay differential once they go through that certification program. We provide in-person and virtual spoken and sign language interpretation, CART and captioning, and the Bilingual Community Connector program, which I'm going to talk about. So really on the right side, when you think about an Alder, it's designing engagement and communication to be something that we can translate in an efficient way that makes sense to the people that are going to receive that material. And then on the left is all the tech that we provide for staff so that they can answer any phone call, they can serve anyone who walks in a different language. We have a couple of different contracts and vendors. We work with local interpreters at Interpreters Cooperative who will come and provide an interpreter for a language, for a meeting. But what's really good to note is we work with a contracted vendor who, if anyone was to call the city of Madison, theoretically, they could have access to an interpreter in 240 plus languages 24/7. And so it's really training staff on utilizing those resources. And then we also have VRI, which means that if you have a deaf or hard of hearing community member, we can serve them through video interpretation with, say, an ASL interpreter. And I just heard a success story this week about someone receiving services because they came into the office and the staff was trained on how to support someone who's deaf or hard of hearing. And they had a video interpreter up on a tablet within 45 seconds. So it's possible, we can do it, we just gotta practice. those are some of our services. We'll do the next slide. So just some framing. Historically, traditionally, I think language access often looks like, hey, we provide a notice. You are entitled to an interpreter or translator. We provide the notice, and then we provide the service. This is like the bare bones structure that I think most people, when they think language access, they understand how the system functions. We are really trying to encourage a more comprehensive approach, one that looks more like language justice. And if you go to the next slide, this is really what we're trying to build the organizational capacity to do. We really need to go beyond, can you translate this flyer so people come to my meeting? Because that's really historically how language access has looked. So I'm going to use an example because, you know, the audience today is alders. Let's imagine you're an alder and you're going to have a community meeting or a neighborhood meeting. You might say, well, I heard it's a law that I do language access. So you might translate your flyer so people come to the neighborhood meeting. In that instance, you would have basically provided service. But we encourage you to actually go through this kind of larger list of items. The first one is to identify and assess. You might ask the question, or you might email us, hey, can I get some statistics on who lives in this area? Who's here? And, you know, we'd tell you across the city, the top 3 spoken languages after English are Spanish, Hmong, and Chinese. Of course, there's some nuances when you go into different neighborhoods, and you actually might know those yourself because you're interacting with people. But often, that's what we're advocating you do, at least having those 3 languages. So that's the identification and assessment. Then you're going to inclusively design a program. If you want to speak to folks and, you know, the meeting isn't designed in a way that folks that need childcare or is, you know, close to a bus station, like you're actually going to design the program to be one where the folks can interact with and think about them in the design. You're going to have staff training and learning, and that might be Common Council staff who have been through our trainings to make sure that they know what to do. If someone calls, the phone number listed, can they get them an interpreter? Then you're going to actually provide the service, and then you're going to ask them, how did it go? You're going to chat with them to do continuous improvement. So we want folks to actually think about this a little bit more comprehensively rather than just trying to get bodies in the room. And so we invite you kind of to do that reimagining with us when we think of language access. Next slide. So that was the very quick of the language access program. And now we're going to spotlight one program within the language access program, which is a very new program called the Bilingual Community Connectors Program. And this is really exciting. I only know of 2 other models in the country that does this. And we looked at them, we talked to them before we built out our model. One is in Somerville, Massachusetts, and their program is pretty extensive. They have like 7+ community connectors in different languages and cultural connectors. And then the other model is out of Boulder, Colorado, and theirs isn't like an FTE position. It's much more of it's a smaller kind of a few hours a month position. But we looked at these models and we built this program out to include a Hmong bilingual community connector, a Spanish bilingual community connector, and a Chinese community connector. And they are not translators or interpreters. They are folks who are specialists in providing insight on how to engage these communities and go to where these communities are, as opposed to saying, hey, check out the city website. So maybe we'll go to the next slide. I've said this point a little bit on the why. Why are we doing this? Because interpretation and translation is not, while critical, is not enough. So at the city, we've heard a lot from city staff that said, well, I translated it and I put it on the website, but nobody saw it. That's kind of the main fundamental problem in our design, is that people weren't getting the communications. And so we built out these connectors, and they have a couple different tasks. They actually essentially provide guidance and consultation to city staff, like planning, like Metro, like water, like all these folks that are designing programs, to give them feedback on how they're developing these models, to include folks that have a language preference other than English. They are also a direct resource to community members. Community members can directly call their phone numbers and know that once they call this phone number, someone will answer or the message machine is going to be in their language. And that is huge because right now, 99% of numbers you call at the city are in English. And they say, press 1, press 2. You don't know what they're saying or what number to press because it's not translated into multiple languages. And so these phone numbers are just honestly super key to that one-on-one relation building. We're getting a lot of folks just calling them saying, hey, who do I go for this? And then they kind of liaise. And then the third thing, beyond the city staff consult and the one-on-one community connections, is they're actually forging communications and relationships with community-based organizations and going to where community members are by connecting with radio stations and other forms of non-traditional media. So I'm going to get into that in, I think, a next slide. There it is. Our successes. So we've been really excited to see this program. I've got 4 photos on the slide deck, and they're each just like fun stories. So on the top left, I'm sure Council President Figueroa Cole will be happy to be on the slide here. She's shaking her head no. But she's on the slide regardless because we premiered a new radio station collaboration with the city's premier radio station in Spanish, La Movida. Our bilingual Spanish community connector now has a monthly reoccurring segment about city services. And he invites other city staff, if they speak Spanish or not, to come on and talk about the amazing services that we as a city have. And I circled in the far right, you'll see, with just one radio show, we had about 1,000 live streamers kind of accessing that. That's 1,000 people we probably wouldn't have connected with otherwise. And so we had a radio today. We had a segment today, and we had like 10 to 12 questions coming in live about housing and inspections. And so we're really seeing folks respond well to this, like going to where the people are. On the right, you'll see our Hmong Bilingual Community Connector collaborated with Metro. You know, we've got the new BRT, we're rolling out all this Metro pieces. And our Hmong Bilingual Community Connector started talking to community members, and they were like, we've never been on the bus. We're scared to go on the bus. You're telling us all these things about the bus, but we are in our 60s, 70s, and 80s, and we've never been on the bus. So what did our Hmong Bilingual Community Connector do? She planned a field trip. And she put out the memo. She said, meet me at X location. We will have free bus passes for you. And we are going to get you on this bus together. And they had a little field trip. You can see there's some Hmong elders. And then they went and told their friends. Did you know that there is a discount for seniors? And, you know, starting to share the information, starting to reduce the barriers. And so she also, our Hmong Bilingual Community Connector, has a recurring segment on WORT in Hmong radio. Her radio station is awesome, or her segment rather, because not only is she sharing about city services, but she's sharing oral traditions, she's sharing music, she's really making it a kind of a bicultural experience. And then on the far bottom right, you'll see we had all of the Hmong Bilingual Community Connectors collaborated with Common Council for kind of focus groups. And that's a group of Chinese community members sitting around to create solutions to a difficult budget year. And in the history, I think, of the city, we've not had that much multilingual space in any kind of Common Council city-oriented meeting. Like, we've never seen that much multilingual representation. And so it's just been awesome to see how different departments are connecting with the connectors to literally reimagine our approach to city communications. As you can see through these 4 pictures, none of these are the translation of a flyer. They're new ways of doing things. And, you know, I'll end with 2 points. That sometimes in city government, when we include more people, we think we're including more people to complain or tell us what's not working. The number one thing we hear from folks through our Bilingual Community Connector program is, I didn't know there was free internet at the library. I didn't know that there was a reduction on my water bill if I did this. They're just saying they didn't know about the cool stuff that we're offering. So that's one thing. And then the last point I'll make is, the number one thing our bilingual community connectors say to all city staff when they meet with them is, make it make sense in English. most of our communications don't make sense in English. They're not plain language. And so they'll tell them, hey, why don't you cut 75% of this, keep it tight, and then we'll translate it. And so what they're doing in that interaction is not only helping people who speak these different languages, but helping everybody at the city, including those with disabilities, including those who don't have 7 college degrees to understand a communication. So I'll end there, and thank you for the time today.
Thank you, Christy. I have a few things to say, but I really want to open it to the floor first and see if there's any questions or comments. Okay, so first of all, thank you for this presentation. I am amazed by some of those success stories, examples that you have provided, and especially the one about Metro. Like what a way to offer the services to the city. So I do have a couple of questions about some of the slides here. And one of the questions is on the employee bilingual certification. You said that all city employees, does that include all city employees across the spectrum?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Let me provide clarity. So when HR posts a position, if it's designated bilingual, that means bilingual is on the job line. Bilingual front desk staff, they have to go through our certification process to complete that hire. Because basically what they'll do is they'll take a test, and if they pass the test, then they get hired on as designated bilingual, and that gets them that 1 hour pay differential for every hour worked. Does that make sense? It's not every employee.
Got it. And then do you have like an about number of how many bilingual employees do we have?
Yeah, so the trick to that question, I don't have the answer to how many bilingual employees we have.
Certified.
But the designated bilingual is it's pretty low. I think we're looking at like 6, 7. And so we're starting to see city positions say, hey, what if we put this as bilingual? And you can actually put it as bilingual, and let's say you don't find a bilingual candidate, you can just move forward without the bilingual element. But if you are willing to put the dollar piece there, like especially in that front desk kind of roles, we're encouraging that.
And can you define what CART means on that slide? It says CART and
Yeah,
real-time
I actually
captioning.
wrote it down because I'm always like in the acronyms. Okay, computer-aided real-time translation. So this is a method to provide access to spoken communication for people who are deaf or hard of hearing. It's defined as the instant translation of spoken English to English text using computer or real-time software. So that might be an actual person who comes and is doing that real-time, or a software. And the text can be displayed on mediums like the individual's computer, projected onto a screen, combined with a video or other display systems.
Thank you. And then when it comes to the connectors and the services that you do for other meetings or the services that we provide for committees like the ARC, for example, do you have stats, and you don't have to give them to me today, but do you have stats of the usage of each language for those specific committees?
Yeah, I can give you the stat that I like the most is the number of folks using phone calling in, because that's like the customers calling rather than us translating. That was kind of pulled by us. So I just pulled recent stats year to date. So that's January to June. July is not included. So community members calling city phone numbers. We had 1,071 call the police department year to date. That's about 90% of our language access calls.
Wow.
Okay, so after police department at 1,071, we had water utility at 172. So you see the difference between our top 1 and a 2. And the third was CDA housing at 61. That's year to date. That's phone calls. 90% of those are in Spanish. So interesting statistic, almost 0 were in Hmong. We know there's a high population of Hmong folks that need these services. So it's like the data isn't showing like, oh, I guess Hmong people don't need these services. It's how we're out in the community. How do people know about the service? From a training perspective, city staff are pretty good at pressing 1 for Spanish. to get another language, it requires 2 more steps. And we've seen those 2 more steps be barriers. So we really want to encourage people to practice utilizing other languages.
But do you also have, do you have numbers when we provide interpretation at meetings?
Yeah, definitely. I can pull those because those come directly to our office. And what's tricky about those, sometimes those are resident led, but sometimes they're just like, we want those, we want interpretation there and no one used them. But if it's helpful, I can pull year-to-date interpretation requests. Would you want like commission meetings specifically or just?
Yeah, I can send you a request, specific request.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just wanted to know if that data was available.
Yeah, we have that.
Okay, good. Yeah, those are kind of my general questions. One more question. So if we, as elders, need something translated, and I see that you're asking use plain language and things like that, do we then send you send the flyer to you? Or to who?
Yeah.
To send the flyer?
Perfect. Email LAP, I think it was at the end of the slide, but it's a great question. You're sending your emails to LAP@cityofmadison.com. And you can even send a flyer that you don't know if it's in plain language and say, hey, I'm curious, do you have any guidance on plain language on this? And we'll provide that guidance and that feedback before we send it out for translation. Probably ask you a few follow-up questions.
What is the turnaround, and what is the prerequisites to get that information to you?
Yeah, when you send the email, it'll have a response with I think all the fine print details. I think we ask for 10 to 12 business days for most projects. But that's a really broad thing because someone will send in a 20-page document, right, versus a 1-page document. So if you want this to be turned around quickly, you can say, I'd like this is urgent, I need it by X date. If we're using our contracted translators, there's going to be a fee for that expedited piece. But if we're using our bilingual community connectors, especially for a 1-pager, you're not, it's in-house. There's not gonna be a charge. So we also really recommend alders reach out to us for emergency communication. That's what's really great about the bilingual community connectors. We don't have to go through kind of these contracted vendors. We work with our folks for expedited requests like that.
I have one more question, and it just gave me. So, yeah, I'm gonna have to leave it there.
I have one piece that I forgot. I brought it with me, and I know there's not a lot of alders in the room, but I'll drop these off at the Common Council office with Karen, and you all can have it. What I have here are actual business cards with the language line number. You just call. And Common Council has its own 2-digit code. So alders, if you keep this in your pocket and anyone comes up to you and speaks a language you don't know, you can practice with this. I also encourage you to practice. You can be at home and practice. Press these 5 buttons. I've given you the code on this piece of paper and I can email it to you. Practice with a language with a family friend. And if any constituent comes up to you, you press these numbers, you put it on speakerphone, and you have an interpreter on your hands right there. So please utilize the service. If you have a tablet, we can get you or even the iPhone, we can get you the plugin so you can have a one-touch shop for video for a deaf or hard of hearing community member that's communicating with you. You flip the phone, you've got a real-time interpreter. So these are for you. You have your own billing code that I have 0 really on the number because we haven't really put it out there for you all to utilize probably. So just want to name that.
News. And so the last question I had was about the website. Why do we have so few websites that are, that have in different languages and not all of them? Do you have the answer?
Yeah, really the answer to that is kind of a large website language access strategy piece. When I came into the role, there was a question of, do we translate everything in the top 3 languages? You're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it just didn't make sense to me at this juncture because people aren't going to the website. But it's probably because it's not translated, right? So we want to be a little bit strategic. Right now, the 99% of websites aren't in plain language. So really what we're pushing is that websites, one, focus on plain language and create a landing page where you're getting a summary of what people need to know. and translating those into the top 3 languages, as opposed to each site having 45 sites translated. It's not a good use of our resources, and honestly, it doesn't really make sense. So if you're going to ask me for what guidance we're giving departments, it's create kind of one page that can be translated into the top 3 languages that really condenses the information into like, what do these communities need to know? And we absolutely have the resources to translate those.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, and I'm looking forward for those to get those resources. I get my card right now. That's great.
You get your card, you're here.
And we can probably share them with the council later. Any other questions on the queue or no comments? So again, this is an informational item, and I honestly thank you so much. I definitely learned. I know we have talked about this a lot over the past few years, but I learned a lot today that we hadn't covered. So thank you so much, Christine. Alrighty, so moving on.
Chair.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
You have a
wanna make sure-
question?
a comment for Christy. I
Okay.
just wanted to make sure that we were all getting them since I'm not there in chambers right now, but I'm coming, that we're all gonna have them on our desk when we get there.
I promise, I'll get it for you. I'll
Thank
connect
you.
with Karen, and you'll all get all the goodies.
Thank you. And good job, Christy. It was very informative.
Thank you, Alder.
Thank you. Already. So our next item on the agenda, if I can find the agenda, it's I don't know if any of you has any updates for other committee updates. I actually didn't look this week, a little bit busy, but if any of you have any updates that you want to share with the rest of the committee, please raise your hand. Already. And we'll move on then to 81-382, council office updates.
Thank you. Sorry, everyone, with my voice here. I want to give you just a few updates while I have you here. I'll be virtual tonight as well, by the way, so feel free to reach out to me if I can be of any assistance. I'll be at the meeting, but I'll be virtual. I will be out starting tomorrow until back the 19th, if all goes as planned. But yes, I guess I'll say I'm out, but you all know how to find me. I wanted to give you a couple of updates about the budget event follow-up. So my momentum was slowed a little bit by being sick, so I apologize. Between Dave Schmidtke and me and additional agency staff help, we've got answers to about 4/5 of the questions that we received on the note cards with the folks who left their email addresses. I am sending out emails with those answers, so I have a lot of work to do yet, and I'll keep working on that. And Isaac has finished the first draft of the analysis of all of the information that we received at the budget events. I need to review that work. He gave it to me, I think it was last week. I have that on my plate here to review, to get back to him, and then he's gonna do updates and also work hard on executive summary and a conclusion, because currently the report with graphs, he put in visuals, but with visuals it's pushing 60 pages, not including appendices. So we're gonna work on having an executive summary for you all to help with the highlights, and then you can go as deep into it as you'd like. And so we're just wanted to let you know about the status of that. And then I wanted to let you know that for various reasons, there are a lot of neighborhood meetings coming up on Debbie's plate, and a number of them which require sending postcards. And we've been doing a cross-training effort in the office, and so I was cross-trained on this, and I can tell you that it's it takes longer than you think to make a mailing area and to get it all prepared to be able to put into the labels. Anyway, as no surprise, I'm not here to say, oh, it was so quick. And so what that means is if you know something's coming, if you have any inkling something's coming, please reach out to her as soon as you know, and so that she can get you on her to-do list. I believe IT is also making some changes to some of the software that she uses. We're in discussions with IT about what that's going to look like for us. I am being optimistic, and but it may mean that, her to-do list may get longer. So if you wouldn't mind, please, any advance notice that you can provide beyond the 3 weeks, much appreciated. Okay, I don't know that there's anything else, but I'm here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Karen? Don't see any questions. Karen, thank you for the report. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that the last agenda item is 78-125 for future agenda items. If you have anything that you want to add for future agenda items, you can let us know now, or you can always send the information to Karen, and we'll find a location for it on the future agendas. I don't see anyone on the queue, so I guess at this moment I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
A second, please.
Second.
Okay, so that's it. Is there any objection to record a unanimous vote? I don't see any objection with that. Then we adjourn for today. See you guys in a little bit. Thank you so very much. Bye-bye.